The puppy was standing on two legs in the middle of Highway 12 like it was praying, like it was begging. Eleanor Morrison saw it through the windshield and almost kept driving. Almost. Then she saw the blood, dark red against white snow, coming from paws too small to have walked far, coming from something that shouldn't be alive out here. She hit the brakes. The truck slowed, tires finding purchase on black ice. The puppy didn't move, just stood there balanced impossibly on its hind legs with front paws pressed together, shaking, thin enough that Eleanor could see ribs even from 30 feet away. 15 below zero according to the dashboard. The kind of Montana cold that didn't ask permission, that found every gap in your coat and made your lungs ache just breathing. Eleanor sat with the engine idling, heater finally blowing warm, and stared at something that made no sense. Dogs didn't stand like that. Not naturally, not unless they had been trained. And even then, only working dogs, service dogs, K9 units. She'd left Albertson's pharmacy 20 minutes ago with a small white bag pressed to her chest. Metoprolol, 60 pills, the same prescription she'd been taking for 3 years since the doctor used words like arrhythmia and lifestyle changes. She'd nodded and driven straight home to her empty house where nobody waited to ask how the appointment went. The truck was older than most marriages. A 1998 Ford F-150 with rust spots and a passenger door that only opened from inside. It had belonged to Thomas. Everything in her life divided that way now. Things that belonged to Thomas and things that came after. The truck was before, the silence was after. She'd been heading home, had stopped at Miller's for gas because the gauge read quarter tank and probably wasn't the same as certainly, not in a blizzard. The radio had crackled warnings all afternoon, a winter storm, 8 to 12 inches, wind gusts 40 miles per hour, travel not recommended after 6 p.m. It was 4:47 now, according to the dashboard clock. She had maybe 90 minutes before the roads became impassable. 90 minutes to get home and lock the doors and wait out another storm with another frozen dinner for one. But the puppy was still standing there, still begging, still bleeding. Eleanor opened the door. Cold hit like a fist, stole her breath, made her eyes water. She stepped onto the asphalt. Her knee immediately protested. The old injury from 1998, the training accident that ended her career 6 months early. Some days it barely bothered her. Days like this, it felt like railroad spikes. The puppy watched her approach. Didn't run, didn't bark. Just watched with eyes too intelligent for something so young. Eleanor knelt. The frozen road bit through her jeans. She extended her hand slowly, palm down. The puppy took one step forward, pressed its nose to her glove, whole body trembling. Not from fear, from cold, from exhaustion, from something deeper. She ran her hand over its head, down its neck, checking for injuries, for a collar, for anything that might explain why it was dying on Highway 12. Her fingers found something, a ridge of scar tissue inside the left ear, barely visible under matted fur. She pushed the ear back gently. The scar was deliberate, precise, shaped like letters. K9. Eleanor's breath caught. This wasn't a lost pet. This was a working dog, or had been. Someone had marked it the old way before microchips became standard, before everything went digital. The puppy pulled back, took 3 steps toward the tree line, stopped, looked at her, took 3 more steps, leading her somewhere. Every rational part of Eleanor's brain said, get back in the truck, drive home, call animal control tomorrow. The storm was coming. Her knee was screaming. She had medication to take and a house to secure and 100 reasons to walk away. The puppy whimpered, desperate, pleading. Eleanor stood, locked her bad knee, followed. Off the highway, down a shallow embankment, through trees where snow hadn't drifted deep. She could see tire tracks, old ones, half covered. A dirt road buried under winter. 50 yards and the puppy stopped at a chain-link fence, Gate hanging open on broken hinges. Beyond it, Eleanor saw buildings, piles of scrap metal, rusted machinery, vehicles in decay, a hand-painted sign barely visible, Crane salvage yard. No trespassing. The puppy slipped through, looked back, waited. Eleanor hesitated. Private property. No trespassing meant exactly that. Her knee argued against going further. The temperature dropping, sky darkening. The puppy whimpered again. She went through the gate. The salvage yard spread out bigger than it looked from the road. Acres of rusted metal and rotting wood and forgotten things. The puppy wove through like it knew exactly where to go. Past crushed cars, around tire piles, between collapsed sheds. Eleanor followed, boots crunching through undisturbed snow. Nobody came here. Nobody worked here. This was where things came to die. The puppy stopped at the back corner, near fallen fence, sat down, looked at Eleanor, then looked at something beyond. Eleanor moved closer, looked, froze. Chained to rusted rebar driven into frozen ground was another dog. Adult German Shepherd, female, lying on her side in snow, chain wrapped so tight around her neck that fur was rubbed away, raw wounds visible. But that wasn't the worst part. The dog's body was swollen, breathing shallow and rapid. Eleanor had seen enough pregnant dogs in 30 years handling K9 units to know what she was looking at. This dog wasn't just dying, she was about to give birth. Eleanor moved without thinking, crossed the fallen fence, dropped to her knees, found the animal's neck, felt for pulse, weak, thready. The dog's eyes opened. No fear, no aggression, just exhaustion and relief. The puppy pressed itself against the adult dog's side, licked her face, the gesture so gentle it made Eleanor's chest ache. This was the puppy's, there had to be. Somehow this puppy had escaped, had made it to the highway, had stood on two legs and begged, had led Eleanor back, had saved its mother the only way it knew how. Eleanor examined the chain. Heavy gauge steel, padlocked, designed for equipment, not living creatures. The metal had cut deep from struggling, blood crusted black around wounds. She had to get this off, had to get this dog out, had to do it fast because temperature was dropping and this mother wouldn't survive the night and her puppies wouldn't survive at all. Eleanor stood, her knee buckled. She caught herself against the fence post, locked the joint, pushed through. She needed tools, bolt cutters, something. The sound of an engine cut through silence. Eleanor's head snapped up. Headlights coming from the front of the salvage yard, getting closer. A truck, big, diesel from the sound, moving slow through scrap piles. The mother dog tensed. The puppy pressed closer. Eleanor understood with perfect clarity that whoever drove that truck had put this chain here, had left a pregnant dog to freeze, was someone she really didn't want to meet. Headlights swung around crushed cars and caught her full in the face. Blinding, engine revved once, twice, cut off, door open, boots hit gravel. Eleanor stood her ground, positioned herself between the chained dog and whatever was coming. Old instinct, protect the vulnerable, face the threat. A man stepped into the light, big, maybe 6'2", running to fat but solid underneath. 55 if Eleanor had to guess, maybe 56. Heavy work coat and boots and a face that had seen weather, and none of it kind. He walked like someone who owned things, someone used to people getting out of his way. He stopped 10 feet from Eleanor, looked her up and down. Small, mean, calculating eyes, always looking for angles, always working odds. When he spoke, his voice had the rough edge of 2 packs a day. "You're trespassing." Eleanor kept her voice level, professional, the tone she used on suspects back when she wore a badge. "This dog needs medical attention. I'm taking her to a veterinarian." The man laughed. "Not real. The sound you make when someone says something so stupid you can't believe you have to respond. That dog is my property. You're not taking anything anywhere except back to whatever hole you crawled out of. He took a step closer. Eleanor didn't move. She's dying. She's pregnant and she's dying, and I'm not leaving her here. The man's face changed, something cold sliding behind his eyes. Something that knew exactly what was happening and didn't care, had never cared, would never care. I know who you are. Eleanor Morrison. Used to run K9 for Helena PD, retired 20 years ago. Thought you'd come out here and play. Hero. Save the dog. Feel good about yourself. Eleanor's jaw tightened. He knew her, which meant this wasn't random. Which meant this salvage yard, this chain, this whole situation was more complicated than simple neglect. Who are you? The man smiled, didn't reach his eyes. Victor Crane, used to be police chief, before they decided they didn't like the way I did things, before they pushed me out over some internal investigation and gave my job to someone who'd never worked a real case in their life. Eleanor remembered the name now, remembered the scandal. 9 years ago, 2015, evidence tampering, missing drugs from the evidence locker. A case built by a K9 unit that Crane tried to bury. The department forced him into early retirement before they could strip his pension. This dog was Helena PD property. You stole her. Crane's smile widened. Prove it. The department wrote her off years ago, said she was too aggressive, unsuitable for duty. I took her off their hands. Did them a favor. You chained her here, left her to die. Crane shrugged, the gesture of someone who'd run out of reasons to pretend he was anything other than what he was. She knew too much. Dogs remember things, places, people, evidence rooms. I couldn't risk someone finding her, asking questions. So I gave her a nice quiet place to live out her days. Not my fault the stupid animal got pregnant. The mother dog whimpered. Soft, almost missed. The puppy pressed tighter. Eleanor looked at Crane. Really looked. Saw what he was. A man who'd spent his life taking things that didn't belong to him. Who'd hidden behind a badge and a title. When that was gone, had hidden behind a fence with a no trespassing sign. A man who hurt things weaker than him because it made him feel strong. I'm taking this dog. You can call the police, file a report, do whatever you want. But I'm not leaving her here. Crane moved faster than expected, closed the distance in 3 steps, got right in her face, close enough she could smell cigarettes and coffee and something sour underneath. You're not taking anything. You're going to get back in your truck and drive away and forget you ever saw this place. Because if you don't, if you try to make this a problem, I will bury you. I still have friends in the department, people who owe me. People who remember I kept their secrets when it would have been easy to talk. You make noise about this, and I'll make sure everyone knows that Eleanor Morrison, decorated K9 handler, went crazy in her old age. Started seeing things, making accusations. I'll have you committed before you can finish telling your story. Eleanor didn't blink, didn't look away, held his gaze with the same calm she'd used on aggressive dogs for 3 decades. On violent suspects, the calm that came from knowing exactly who you were and what you were willing to do. Crane's phone rang. He pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, expression changed. Irritation, then calculation. He stepped back, answered, turned away, spoke in a low voice she couldn't hear. Conversation lasted maybe 30 seconds. When he turned back, his face was different, more relaxed. Almost pleasant. You got lucky. I have business in town. Can't waste time dealing with a senile old woman playing hero. But I'm giving you a choice. You leave now, right now, and I forget I saw you here. Or you stay, and when I get back, I call the sheriff and have you arrested for trespassing, attempted theft, and whatever else I feel like charging you with. Your choice. He waited. 5 seconds. 10. Then walked past her toward his truck, stopped with hand on the door handle, Look back. That dog dies here. Tonight, tomorrow, next week. Doesn't matter. She's not leaving this property. Neither is the mutt. You want to waste your time crying about it, that's on you. But when you leave, and you will leave, they stay. That's not negotiable. He climbed in, started the engine. Headlights swept over Eleanor one more time. Then he was moving, driving back through the salvage yard, back toward the road. Diesel engine fading into distance. Eleanor stood in the silence that followed. Wind had picked up. She could feel first snowflakes starting to fall. Big wet flakes that stuck to her coat and melted against her face. She looked down at the mother dog, at the puppy pressed against her, at the chain that kept them prisoner. Crane thought she would leave, thought she'd get scared, thought she'd do what people her age were supposed to do, play it safe. Don't make waves, let someone else handle it. He was wrong. Eleanor Morrison had spent 30 years training dogs to find people who didn't want to be found, to track suspects through terrain that would stop most humans cold, to hold position under fire and never break. She'd buried her husband, buried her partner Duke, buried pieces of herself she'd never get back, but she'd never quit. Not once. Not when it was hard. Not when it hurt. Not when everyone told her to walk away. She wasn't starting now. Eleanor moved to the collapsed fence, found broken rebar in the snow, carried it back to where the mother dog was chained, knelt. Cold seeped through her jeans immediately. She ignored it, positioned the rebar against ground where the chain was anchored, started prying. Metal screeched against frozen earth. Her hand slipped. Rebar skidded sideways. She repositioned, tried again. Her knee was screaming, but she locked it down, focused. The mother dog watched her. The puppy watched her. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across mountains as the storm Eleanor had been warned about finally arrived. The rebar wouldn't budge. Eleanor put full weight behind it, leveraged against frozen ground, felt metal bend slightly, but the anchor point held. The rebar securing the chain had been driven deep. Professional work, deliberate. Someone meant for this dog to stay exactly where she was. Eleanor threw the broken piece aside. It clattered against old tires and disappeared into snow. Her hands shook, not from cold, from rage. The kind of anger that builds when you see something helpless suffering and know exactly who's responsible. She looked at the mother dog, at chain cutting into her neck, at swollen belly and labored breathing, at the puppy pressed against her side trying to share what little warmth it had. This wasn't going to work. Not here, not now, not with the tools she had. Eleanor stood. Her knee nearly gave out, but she caught herself against the fence. Snow falling harder now. Thick flakes sticking to everything. Temperature dropping fast. She could feel it in her bones, in the way her breath came out in clouds, in the way her fingers had already started going numb inside her gloves. She needed to go home, get real tools, bolt cutters, a hacksaw, something that could cut through heavy gauge steel. She needed to do this right because she'd only get one chance. If Crane came back and found her here again, he'd make good on his threat. Call the sheriff, have her arrested, maybe worse. Eleanor knelt one more time, put her hand on the mother dog's head. The animal's eyes opened, looked at her with something that might have been understanding. I'm coming back. I promise, I'm not leaving you here. The dog didn't move, just watched. The puppy whimpered. Eleanor forced herself to stand, to turn away, to walk back through the salvage yard the way she'd come. Every step felt like betrayal, like she was doing exactly what Crane expected. Running away, giving up. But she wasn't giving up. She was regrouping. There was a difference. The walk back to her truck took 10 minutes, felt like an hour. Wind had picked up, driving snow sideways, visibility down to maybe 20 feet. The storm was here, full force, the kind of blizzard that shut down highways and left people stranded. Eleanor climbed into the truck and started the engine. Sat with heater running and windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against accumulating snow. She could barely see the road, could barely see anything except white. This was stupid, dangerous. She should wait until morning, until the storm passed, until she could see where she was going. But morning might be too late. The mother dog's breathing had been shallow, rapid, signs of shock, of a body starting to shut down. And if she went into labor out here in this cold chained to that rebar, she'd die. The puppies would die. Everything would die. Eleanor put the truck in gear and pulled onto Highway 12. Tires slipped on ice before catching. She drove slow, slower than she had ever driven, both hands locked on the wheel, eyes straining to see the white line marking the road's edge. The truck fishtailed twice. She corrected, kept going. The 10-mile drive home took 40 minutes. By the time she pulled into her driveway, snow was 6 inches deep and still falling. Porch light glowed yellow through white. A beacon. Home. Safety. Warmth. Eleanor cut the engine and sat. The house looked exactly like it had when she'd left this morning. Small, silent, empty. Thomas had bought this place in 1982. They'd planned to fill it with kids, dogs, life. But kids never came and dogs all died eventually, and now it was just her and rooms full of memories. She got out, unlocked the front door, stepped into warmth. Silence pressed against her like a physical thing. She could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, the furnace cycling on, the house settling, nothing else. Eleanor moved through familiar space on autopilot, hung up her coat, kicked off boots, went to the kitchen and opened the drawer where she kept medications. The metoprolol bottle sat there next to the others. Blood pressure, cholesterol, the pharmacy of getting old. She took tonight's dose with a glass of water, stood at the sink and looked out the window at the storm, at snow piling against the back fence, at the world disappearing into white. She should eat something, should call it a night, should accept that some things were beyond her ability to fix. Instead, she walked down the hallway to the second bedroom. The one Thomas had used as an office, the one she hadn't changed since he died because changing it meant accepting he was really gone. Eleanor opened the closet, pushed aside hanging shirts that still smelled faintly of Old Spice, reached into the back where she'd stored boxes, found the one marked HPD equipment, pulled it out. Inside was everything she hadn't been able to throw away when she retired. Her badge, her service weapon unloaded in a lockbox, training manuals, photographs of every K9 she'd ever handled, and at the bottom wrapped in an old towel the tools, heavy-duty bolt cutters, military grade. The kind they used to cut through fences and chains and anything else that needed cutting. She'd requisitioned them in 1997 for a training exercise. Never turned them in. Nobody asked. After she retired, they just became part of the collection of things she couldn't let go. Eleanor lifted them out, weight familiar in her hands, 26 inches long, hardened steel jaws, capable of cutting through half-inch chain like butter. These would work. She set them aside, kept digging, found the headlamp she used to wear on night operations, heavy-duty gloves, first aid kit still stocked with gauze and antiseptic and emergency supplies. Everything she'd need. Then she saw it, at the very bottom of the box, a photograph, Duke, her last partner, sitting in perfect form, ears up, eyes alert, the best dog she'd ever worked with, the best friend she'd ever had. Eleanor picked up the photo. Duke had been 7 when this was taken, 2002, 2 years before the cancer took him in 2004, before the vet visits that couldn't save him, before the final morning in 2004 when she'd held him while they gave the injection. 1 year before she retired, she'd promised herself that day, no more dogs, no more attachments, no more pain. She kept that promise for 20 years, from 2004 to tonight. But looking at Duke's face now, she realized something. The pain of losing him had been terrible, unbearable, but it had also been worth it. Every moment, every mission, every quiet evening with his head on her lap, worth it. Eleanor put the photo in her pocket, gathered the tools, went back to the kitchen. She found a notepad in the drawer, wrote quickly, "To whoever finds this, if I don't come back, check Crane's salvage yard on Old County Road. There's a dog chained in the back, pregnant, dying. Call animal control, call the police. Make sure someone helps her. Eleanor Morrison." She left the note on the kitchen table where her neighbor Mrs. Patterson would find it tomorrow when she came by to check like she always did, propped it against the salt shaker so it wouldn't blow away if the door opened. Then Eleanor put on her warmest coat, pulled on insulated boots, grabbed the bolt cutters and first aid kit and headlamp, checked her watch. 7:43 p.m. Full dark outside. Storm at peak intensity. Roads probably impassable by now. Perfect conditions for doing something incredibly stupid. She went back out to the truck, threw tools in the passenger seat, started the engine. Fuel gauge read half tank. Enough. Probably. Temperature gauge outside read -18. Wind chill had to be -30. Maybe worse. Eleanor backed out of the driveway. Truck's tires spun before catching. Snow had drifted across the road. No tracks, nobody else out here. Nobody else crazy enough to drive in this. The highway was worse than before. White on white. No visible lines, no markers. Just vague sense of where the road should be based on tree line on either side. Eleanor drove by feel, by instinct, by 30 years of night operations in conditions like this. The truck slid twice. She corrected, kept speed steady, 10 miles an hour, 15 in clear patches. It took an hour to cover distance that should have taken 15 minutes. When she finally saw the turnoff to Crane's salvage yard, she almost missed it. Entrance was buried, drifted over. She had to gun the engine to punch through. Truck wallowed through snow up to the bumper before breaking into marginally clearer path beyond trees. Eleanor killed the headlights, cut the engine, sat in sudden silence broken only by wind howling through pines. Salvage yard spread out ahead. Dark, empty, no sign of Crane's truck, no lights, nothing. She pulled on the headlamp, grabbed the bolt cutters, left the first aid kit for now, stepped out into the blizzard. Cold hit her like a fist, stole her breath, made her eyes water instantly. Wind drove snow into every gap in her coat. Eleanor lowered her head and pushed forward, following the path she'd walked hours earlier, following tracks already filling in. It took 20 minutes to reach the back corner, 20 minutes fighting through knee-deep snow, of her bad knee threatening to give out with every step, of wind trying to knock her down, of cold working its way past every layer. The mother dog was still there, still chained, still breathing, barely. The puppy had curled itself around her head, trying to keep her warm, trying to keep her alive. When Eleanor's headlamp found them, both dogs looked up. The puppy's tail wagged once, weak, hopeful. Eleanor knelt in the snow, positioned the bolt cutters around the chain as close to the padlock as she could manage. Metal was so cold it burned through her gloves. She squeezed the handles, felt resistance, squeezed harder. The chain snapped with a sound like a gunshot. The mother dog's body jerked at the noise, then went still. Eleanor dropped the bolt cutters, reached for the animal's neck, found the pulse, still there, weak but there. She unwrapped the chain carefully, slowly. Links had frozen to the dog's fur in places, had to be worked free. When Eleanor finally pulled the last of it away, she could see the damage. Deep wounds, infection, frostbite around the edges. The mother dog tried to stand, made it halfway before her legs gave out. Eleanor caught her, lowered her gently. The dog was shaking uncontrollably now. Shock, hypothermia, labor, all of it hitting at once. Eleanor ran her hands over the swollen belly, felt movement. Puppies, still alive, still fighting, She checked the dog's gums, pale, almost white. Checked the eyes, unfocused. This dog needed a vet, needed warmth, needed help Eleanor couldn't provide out here. She had to move fast. Eleanor stood, took off her coat, wrapped it around the mother dog as best she could. The puppy immediately crawled into the makeshift bundle, pressed against its mother. Eleanor lifted them both. The mother dog had to weigh 70 pounds. The puppy, another 15, plus the coat, 90 pounds total. Eleanor's knees screamed the moment she put weight on it. The old injury from 1998 wasn't just complaining anymore. It was giving out. The joint swelling inside her boot. Hot, angry, but she locked it, adjusted the weight, started walking. 3 steps, 5, 10. The knee held, barely. She could feel it threatening with every movement, feel the old damage waking up, reminding her she was 72 and this was insane. She kept walking. The path back to the truck stretched endless. What had taken 20 minutes to walk in would take twice that carrying 90 pounds, maybe more. Snow was deeper, wind stronger, knee getting worse with every step. Eleanor made it 50 yards before she had to stop. Set the dogs down. Her knee buckled. The old injury from 1998 wasn't just complaining anymore. It was giving out. The joint swelling inside her boot. Hot, angry, threatening to collapse completely. She could push through pain, had done it for 30 years, but a knee that wouldn't hold weight was different. That could kill her out here just as sure as the cold. Eleanor bent down, massaged the joint through her pants, felt the swelling, felt the heat, forced herself to breathe, to think. She couldn't carry them the whole way. Not with her knee like this, but she couldn't leave them either. Couldn't make multiple trips. The mother dog wouldn't survive being left. The puppy would try to stay with her. They'd both freeze. Eleanor picked up the dogs again, gritted her teeth against the pain, started walking. Slower this time, more careful, favoring the bad leg, compensating with the good one. 20 yards, 30, 50. Headlights cut through the snow ahead of her. Eleanor froze. The lights were coming from inside the salvage yard. Coming fast. A truck. Diesel engine. Crane. He'd come back. Eleanor looked around frantically. Nowhere to hide. She was in the middle of an open area between piles of scrap, completely exposed. Headlights swept closer. She could hear the engine now. Revving, angry. The truck stopped 30 feet away. Door open. Crane climbed out. He stood in the headlights. Backlit. A black silhouette against white. When he spoke, his voice carried over the wind. Flat. Cold. Final. I told you to leave. He started walking toward her. Eleanor set the dogs down behind her, positioned herself between them and Crane. Her hands were empty, no weapon, no tools, nothing but her body and whatever fight she had left. Crane stopped 10 feet away, close enough she could see his face in reflected light. He wasn't angry, wasn't surprised, just tired. Like this was an inconvenience he'd expected. You know what really pisses me off, Crane said. Not that you came back. I figured you might. Old women always think they're heroes. No, what pisses me off is that you're making me do this. Making me handle you. I had plans tonight. Warm house, cold beer, game on TV. Instead, I'm out here in a blizzard dealing with someone who should have known better. He pulled something from his coat pocket. Eleanor's stomach dropped. A gun, small, snub-nosed revolver, the kind cops used to carry as backup pieces. Crane didn't point it at her, just held it. Let her see it. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to leave those you're going to walk to your truck. You're going to drive away. And we're going to forget this ever happened. That's option 1, he paused, looked at the gun in his hand, back at Eleanor. Option 2, I shoot the dogs right now. Then I call the sheriff and report a trespasser who attacked me, who I defended myself against. Your truck is on my property. Your note is on your kitchen table. Won't be hard to spin the story. Crazy old woman, history of working with dogs, couldn't let go, broke into private property, forced me to protect myself. Eleanor's mind raced. He knew about the note, which meant he'd been to her house, had broken in while she was gone, had read what she wrote, had planned for this exact scenario. She was outmatched, outgunned, out of options. Crane smiled, thin, cruel. So what's it going to be, hero? Eleanor looked at him, at the gun, at the truck idling behind him, at the dogs lying in the snow at her feet. The mother dog's breathing was getting worse, ragged, rapid. The puppy pressed against her, both of them shaking. She'd made a promise, back in that salvage yard, back when she'd first seen the chain. She'd promised she wouldn't leave them, wouldn't let them die, wouldn't walk away. Eleanor Morrison had never broken a promise in her life. She wasn't starting now. She didn't answer, just stood there, between Crane and the dogs, not moving, not speaking, just standing. Crane's expression changed. The smile faded. Something harder underneath. Fine, he said. We'll do this the hard way. He moved fast, closed the distance, grabbed Eleanor's coat with his free hand, spun her around, shoved her toward a shipping container sitting 20 yards away. The kind used to store equipment, or in this case, lock people in. Eleanor stumbled. Her knee gave out completely. She went down hard, face first into the snow. Impact drove air from her lungs. She tried to push up, but Crane's boot pressed down on her back. Held her there. You had your chance, he said. Should have taken it. He grabbed her arm, hauled her upright, half dragged, half carried her to the container. Threw open the door. Inside was pitch black, cold metal, no light. Crane shoved her inside. Eleanor hit the far wall, collapsed. Before she could move, Crane slammed the door. Sound of metal on metal, then a lock engaging. Heavy, industrial, darkness, complete, total, the kind that pressed against your eyes. Eleanor sat up slowly. Her knee throbbed. Her hands were numb. She couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything except wind outside and her own breathing. The container had to be 8 feet by 20, standard size. She'd been in dozens during training exercises, had learned how to escape from locked-in rooms, from vehicles, from handcuffs. The training was old, but the principles were the same. She felt along the walls, smooth metal, no gaps, no weaknesses, found the door, ran her fingers over the lock mechanism. External padlock, no way to reach it from inside. Eleanor sat back, forced herself to think, to slow down, to use her head instead of panic. The container was metal. In minus 20-degree weather, it would act like a freezer. She had maybe an hour before hypothermia became a real problem. Maybe less given her age, given the exertion, given everything. Think, what did she have? What could she use? Her pockets. Eleanor checked them one by one. Gloves, already wearing them. Wallet, keys to her truck, useless. A pen. The photograph of Duke, the photograph. Eleanor pulled it out, held it even though she couldn't see it in the dark. Duke staring back at her, alert, ready, waiting for orders. She'd trained him to pick locks once, as a party trick, as a way to show what smart dogs could do. He'd learned to use his teeth to manipulate simple mechanisms, deadbolts, chain locks, nothing complicated, but enough to prove the concept. Duke couldn't help her now, but the training was still there. The knowledge, the skills she'd learned from watching him, from understanding how locks worked. Eleanor felt along the seam of the door, found where internal mechanism connected. Shipping containers had simple locks, just a rotating bar that dropped into a catch. If she could reach the bar, could manipulate it. She pulled off one glove, took the pen from her pocket, clicked it, pulled out the ink cartridge. The spring inside was small but sturdy. She bent it, straightened one end, created a hook. Her fingers were already going numb from cold. She worked fast, slid the makeshift pick into the gap between door and frame, felt for internal mechanism, found resistance, adjusted angle, pushed, nothing. She tried again. Different position, different pressure. Metal was cold enough that touching it bare-handed felt like touching fire. Eleanor ignored it, focused. The lock clicked. The bar moved a fraction of an inch. Not enough, but movement, progress. Eleanor repositioned, pushed harder. The spring bent, threatened to snap. She eased off, found the sweet spot, felt the bar slide, the lock disengaged. Eleanor pushed the door. It swung open. Cold air and snow poured in. She'd been inside maybe 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. She stumbled out, fell to her knees in the snow, looked around. Crane's truck was gone. Headlights, engine, all of it. He'd left. Probably figured she'd freeze or give up or die. He'd figured wrong. Eleanor got to her feet. Her knee barely supported her weight. She limped back to where she'd left the dogs. Found them. Still there, still breathing. The mother dog's eyes opened when Eleanor's shadow fell across her. "I told you," Eleanor said. "I'm not leaving you." She bent down, picked them both up. The pain was immediate, overwhelming. Her knee, her hands, everything hurt. She didn't care. Eleanor carried the dogs through the salvage yard, through the blizzard, through the pain, one step at a time. When she reached her truck, she lowered them gently into the passenger seat, started the engine, turned the heater to maximum. The mother dog's breathing changed, faster, more urgent. Eleanor looked closer, saw the first contractions. Labor had started. Eleanor couldn't drive, not yet. Not with the mother dog's body seizing up every 30 seconds. Not with contractions coming faster. Not with the puppy pressed against its mother crying in a pitch Eleanor had never heard before. Fear. Pure animal fear. She killed the engine, reached across and touched the mother dog's side, felt muscles tightening under her hand, counted. 30 seconds. Released. 40 seconds of rest. Another contraction. The timing was wrong, too fast, too close together. This dog's body was trying to expel puppies before it was ready, before the birth canal had fully dilated, before anything was in position. Eleanor had seen it before. Stress-induced labor, trauma, hypothermia. The body deciding that staying pregnant was more dangerous than giving birth, even if giving birth right now meant the puppies wouldn't survive. The heater roared, blowing hot air that hadn't warmed up yet, still ice cold. Temperature gauge on the dashboard read -22. Inside the cab, it was maybe 40 degrees, rising slowly, too slowly. Eleanor made a decision. She couldn't make it home. 10 miles in a blizzard with a dig actively giving birth. Impossible. She'd crash, get stuck, something. But she couldn't stay here either. In Crane's salvage yard, where he could come back, where the cold would kill them all. She needed shelter. Close now. Eleanor restarted the engine, put the truck in gear, drove slowly back through the salvage yard, past piles of scrap, past fallen and mullen fence, back to the gate. The main road was barely visible. A white void. No tracks, no markers, nothing. She turned right, away from town, away from home, toward the only structure she knew was close. Miller's gas station. 3 miles, maybe less, if it was still open. If the kid behind the counter hadn't closed up early because of the storm, it had to be open. It had to be. The truck crawled through the blizzard, 5 miles an hour, 10 where the road was clearer. Eleanor's hands locked on the wheel, eyes straining. The mother dog groaned, a sound that came from deep in her chest. Primal. Oh, the sound every mammal makes when bringing life into the world. The puppy licked its mother's face, whimpering. Eleanor glanced over, saw the mother dog's eyes, saw pain, exhaustion, but something else too, determination. This dog wasn't giving up, wasn't quitting, was fighting to bring her puppies into the world against odds that would have killed a weaker animal hours ago. Miller's sign appeared through the snow, fluorescent letters glowing green. Open. Thank God. Eleanor pulled into the lot, parked as close to the building as possible, grabbed the first aid kit from behind the seat, left the truck running, heater on full blast. She ran inside. The kid behind the counter looked up from his phone, maybe 19, acne scars, bored expression that changed to confusion when he saw Eleanor's face. I need towels, clean ones, as many as you have, and water, bottled water. The kid blinked. What Eleanor didn't repeat herself, went around the counter, found the storage room, grabbed a stack of shop towels still in plastic, clean enough, found a case of bottled water, carried it all to the counter. The kid stood up. Hey, you can't just take that. Eleanor pulled out her wallet, threw two 20s on the counter. That enough. The kid looked at this money, at Eleanor, at the supplies in her arms. Yeah, I guess. You okay, lady? Eleanor was already moving. Back to the truck, back to the mother dog whose contractions were coming every 20 seconds now. No rest between them. Just constant seizing, constant pain. She opened the passenger door. The mother dog was on her side, panting. The puppy had backed into the corner. Watching, scared, Eleanor grabbed it gently, set it in the back seat. It immediately started crying. Wanting its mother, Eleanor ignored it, focused on the task. She opened the package of towels, spread several across the seat, opened a bottle of water, washed her hands as best she could. Water was ice cold, but she scrubbed. 30 years of training. Sterile procedure, even in a truck cab, even in a blizzard, especially then. The mother dog's water broke, clear fluid soaking into towels. Eleanor checked, saw the first puppy beginning to crown. Head first. Good, the right position. She put her hand on the dog's side, felt the next contraction building. Easy, girl, easy. Let your body do the work. The contraction hit. The mother dog pushed. The puppy moved inch by inch. Eleanor resisted the urge to help, to pull. You let nature handle it unless nature failed. That was the rule. She'd learned it watching dozens of births, had seen handlers panic and pull too hard and hurt both mother and puppy. Wait, watch, be ready. The first puppy emerged in a rush, still in its sack, not moving. Eleanor grabbed a towel, broke the membrane, cleared the nose and mouth, rubbed the tiny body vigorously, stimulating circulation, forcing air into lungs. The puppy coughed, squirmed, opened its mouth, made a sound, weak but alive. Eleanor wrapped it, set it close to the mother's head. The dog lifted her head just enough to sniff her newborn, then lay back down, exhausted, empty. But the contractions continued. Puppy 2 came 10 minutes later. Same process. Clear the sac, clear the airways, stimulate. This one came out moving, crying, strong. Eleanor wrapped it, set it with its sibling. The mother dog licked them both weakly, her tongue barely moving. She was crashing, shock setting in hard, body temperature dropping despite the heater, despite the towels, despite everything. Eleanor checked her pulse, thready, weak, gums pale, eyes unfocused. This dog needed a vet, needed IV fluids and antibiotics and professional care. But the nearest emergency vet was 15 miles away in Helena, unreachable in this storm. Eleanor grabbed her coat from the back seat, the one she'd wrapped around the balls earlier, draped it over the mother, tucked the edges in, created a pocket of warmth. The puppy from the salvage yard crawled under too, all of them huddled together. Come on, stay with me. 2 more. Just 2 more. The next contraction came 5 minutes later. Weaker than the others, the mother dog barely pushed, her body giving out. Eleanor saw the third puppy begin to emerge. Wrong position, feet first, breech birth, the most dangerous kind. Eleanor's training kicked in. She waited for the next contraction. When it came, she put gentle pressure on the puppy, guiding it, helping without forcing. The mother dog whimpered, pushed. The puppy moved, slowly, too slowly. Another contraction. Eleanor guided. The puppy came free. She grabbed it, broke the sack, cleared the mouth, the nose, started rubbing. The puppy didn't move, didn't cough, didn't make any sound at all. Eleanor rubbed harder, nothing. She turned it upside down, let fluid drain from the airway, rubbed the chest, nothing. No movement, no breath, no heartbeat she could feel. No. Eleanor had lost puppies before. It happened. Breech births, complications. Sometimes they just didn't make it. That was nature. That was reality. You accepted it and moved on. But she'd also saved puppies. Puppies that came out not breathing. Puppies everyone assumed were dead. She'd saved them with techniques she'd learned from emergency veterinarians. Techniques most people didn't know, didn't think to use. Eleanor laid the puppy on a towel, tilted its head back, opened its mouth, put her mouth over the tiny nose and muzzle, breathed gentle, just enough to fill lungs the size of walnuts. Too much pressure would blow them apart. She breathed twice, pulled back, put 2 fingers on the puppy's chest, right over the heart, started compressions, tiny movements, a fraction of an inch. The chest so small her fingers covered it completely. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. The puppy didn't respond. Eleanor kept going. 60 seconds, 90, her own chest starting to ache from the position. She pushed it down, ignored it, focused on the tiny life under her hands. 2 minutes, the standard cutoff. After 2 minutes without response, you stopped. You accepted, you let go. Eleanor kept going. 2 minutes, 30 seconds, her fingers cramping, her breath coming hard. The puppy cold and still and lifeless. Please, please, 3 minutes. The puppy coughed. Eleanor froze, watched. The tiny chest moved, rose, fell, rose again. The puppy coughed again, harder, cleared fluid from its lungs, opened its mouth, made a sound, thin, weak, the most beautiful sound Eleanor had ever heard. She grabbed a towel, wrapped the puppy, rubbed it dry, stimulated circulation. The puppy squirmed, cried, lived. Eleanor held it against her chest, felt its heartbeat, felt her own heartbeat, both of them racing, both of them fighting, both of them winning. She set the puppy with its siblings, 3 of them now, all breathing, all alive. The mother dog sniffed this last one, licked it once, twice, then rested her head on the towels. Done, finished. Still alive, but barely, Eleanor checked. No more contractions. The birth was over. 3 puppies, all survived, against odds that should have killed them. She wrapped everyone in her coat, in towels, created a nest, then climbed back into the driver's seat, put the truck in gear, started the long crawl home. The storm had peaked, still snowing, still wind. But the worst had passed. Eleanor could see the road now, could follow the white line, could make slow, steady progress. It took 90 minutes to cover 10 miles. By the time she pulled into her driveway, it was past midnight. The house dark. The porch light burned out sometime while she was gone. She didn't care. She was home. They were all home. Eleanor carried the mother dog first, wrapped in the coat with the 3 newborns tucked against her. The original puppy followed, walking on its own now, stronger than it had been hours ago, like it knew the worst was over. Inside, Eleanor went straight to the bathroom, the only room she could close off, control the temperature, keep warm. She grabbed every towel she owned, made a bed in the bathtub, lined with blankets underneath, soft towels on top, positioned the mother dog carefully, set the puppies against her belly where they immediately started rooting, looking for milk. Eleanor turned on the space heater, the one Thomas used to use in his workshop, aimed it at the tub. Watch the temperature gauge climb. 60 degrees, 65, 70. The mother dog stopped shivering. The puppies settled. Eleanor sat on the bathroom floor, her knees screaming, her hands shaking from exhaustion and adrenaline in relief. She'd done it. Against Crane, against the storm, against death itself. She'd done it. The puppy that had led her to all this. The one that stood on two legs on the highway and begged. It climbed into her lap, curled up, put its head on her knee, looked at her with eyes that understood more than any puppy should. Eleanor put her hand on its head, scratched behind the ears, the gesture automatic, familiar. She'd done this 1,000 times with Duke, with every dog she'd ever trained. But this felt different. This felt like something breaking open inside her chest, something that had been locked tight for 5 years. Tears came, silent at first, then harder. Eleanor cried like she hadn't cried since Thomas died, since Duke died, since everything good seemed to drain out of the world and leave nothing but silence. But this wasn't grief, not entirely. This was release, relief, the overwhelming sense that maybe, just maybe, there was still purpose, still reason, still something worth fighting for. She fell asleep on the bathroom floor, the puppy in her lap, the mother dog and her newborns breathing steady in the tub, the space heater humming, the storm still raging outside, but inside everything warm, everything safe, everything alive. Eleanor woke to pounding on the front door, harsh, urgent, the kind of knocking that meant police or emergency. She jerked upright, pain shot through her knee, her back, everything stiff from sleeping on tile. The bathroom was bright, daylight, morning. How long had she been asleep? The clock on the wall read 9:47 a.m., almost 10 hours. The pounding continued. Eleanor checked the tub. Mother dog still breathing, puppies nursing. Good. She stood slowly, limped through the house, looked out the window. 2 police cruisers in her driveway, 4 officers, and a woman in plain clothes. Detective. Eleanor recognized the stance, the way she held herself, authority without arrogance. Eleanor opened the door. The woman stepped forward. 38, maybe 39, red hair pulled back, green eyes that assessed Eleanor in 2 seconds and saw everything. The exhaustion, the injuries, the determination. Eleanor Morrison, yes. I'm Detective Rebecca Williams, Helena PD, can we come in? Eleanor stepped aside. The officers followed Williams into the living room. They spread out, professional, looking around. Eleanor knew what they were seeing, the note on the kitchen table, the bolt cutters by the door, the tracks of melted snow from last night. Williams turned to face her. Ms. Morrison, we received a report this morning from your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. She found a note on your kitchen table. Something about a book at Crane's salvage yard. Eleanor said nothing. Waited. This was it. Crane had called it in. Trespassing. Theft. Whatever story he'd spun, she was about to be arrested at 72 for trying to save a dying animal. Williams continued, we went to check it out, found the salvage yard, found evidence of a chained animal, fresh bolt cutter, marks on the chain. We also found something else. She pulled out her phone, showed Eleanor a photo, shipping containers, dozens of them, opened. Inside, Eleanor could see cages, animals, birds, reptiles, things that didn't belong in Montana. We found an illegal wildlife trafficking operation. 17 endangered species, all being held for sale on the black market. We also found records, financial documents, names. This operation has been running for 8 years. Eleanor's mind raced. 8 years, the same time Valor had been missing. Williams put her phone away. We've been looking for evidence to connect Victor Crane to trafficking for 2 years. We knew he was dirty, knew he'd been running something out of that salvage yard, but we couldn't prove it. Couldn't get a warrant. Couldn't get inside. She looked at Eleanor. Until you did. Eleanor blinked. What? Williams smiled. Thin but genuine. You broke in. You cut that chain. You left evidence everywhere. When we showed up this morning, Crane tried to claim you were trespassing, tried to file charges. But when we asked why a 72-year-old woman would break into his property, he got nervous, started sweating, started making mistakes. One of the other officers stepped forward. We got a warrant based on suspicious circumstances, found the trafficking operation within an hour. Crane's in custody, so are 3 of his associates. They're looking at federal charges, 15 to 20 years minimum. Eleanor sat down heavily on the couch. Her knee gave out and she didn't fight it. Let herself collapse, tried to process what she was hearing. William sat next to her. There's something else. We found a microchip scanner in Crane's office, ran it on some of the animals. One of them pinged our database. A German Shepherd, registered to Helena P. DK9 unit, reported stolen in 2016. Eleanor looked up sharply. Her name is Valor. Crane was forced out in April 2015. Valor went missing March 2016, 11 months later. We think he planned it, waited until the heat died down, then broke into the old K9 facility one night. No cameras back then, no security, just took her and disappeared. She was the K9 who found the drugs in his evidence locker. The dog who helped build the case against him. He stole her to silence her, to make sure she couldn't testify if we ever reopened the investigation. Williams leaned forward. Where is she? In my bathroom. She gave birth last night. 3 puppies. They're all alive. Williams stood. Can I see her? Eleanor led them to the bathroom, opened the door. The mother dog, Valor, raised her head, looked at the detective. No fear, no aggression, just tired recognition. Williams knelt by the tub, reached out slowly, let Valor sniff her hand. The dog's tail moved. Weak, but it moved. Hey, girl. Hey, we've been looking for you. She looked at Eleanor. You saved her life. You saved all of them. Do you understand what you've done? I just couldn't leave her there. Couldn't walk away. William stood, turned to face Eleanor fully. You didn't just save a dog. You broke open a case we've been working for 2 years. You gave us probable cause. You led us straight to evidence we'd never have found otherwise. Ms. Morrison, you're not in trouble. You're a hero. Eleanor shook her head. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who couldn't sleep knowing she was out there. That's what makes you a hero, one of the officers spoke up. Ma'am, we're going to need to document everything. Your statement, photos of the injuries, timeline of events. It's going to take a few hours. Eleanor nodded. Whatever you need. Williams pulled out his phone again. I'm calling the emergency vet, getting them out here. Valor needs to be checked. The puppies, too. On the department's dime. It's the least we can do. She made the call, spoke quickly, hung up. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Eleanor sat on the edge of the tub, reached down, touched Valor's head. The dog looked at her, and something passed between them. Understanding, gratitude, connection. The puppy that had started everything. The one that led Eleanor to the salvage yard. It climbed into her lap again. Settled, Williams noticed. That one's got good instincts, knew exactly who to ask for help. Eleanor scratched behind its ears. What happens to them now? To Valor and the puppies. Williams considered. Technically, Valor is still department property. But given what she's been through, what she's survived, I think the department would be open to a permanent placement if someone wanted to adopt her. She looked at Eleanor. Know anyone who might be interested? Eleanor felt something crack open wider in her chest. The same feeling from last night, but bigger, stronger, like a door that had been locked tight suddenly swinging wide. I might. I might know someone. William smiled. Good, because I think Valor's already chosen. The vet arrived, examined Valor, gave her fluids, antibiotics, cleaned and bandaged her wounds, examined each puppy, declared them all healthy, underweight but healthy, miracles given what they'd survived. The third puppy, the one Eleanor had brought back from nothing. The vet held it up to the light, listened to its heart, its lungs, set it back with its siblings. This one almost didn't make it, did it? Eleanor nodded. Wasn't breathing when it was born. Had to do CPR. Took 3 minutes before it responded. The vet looked at her with new respect. That's extraordinary. Most people wouldn't know how. Wouldn't try for that long. You gave this puppy its life. What should I call it? The vet smiled. Miracle. Call it miracle, because that's what it is. Over the next 6 months, Eleanor's house transformed. The silence filled with sound. Barking, playing, the chaos of 3 growing puppies and their mother. The puppy that led her to Valor she named Scout. The first 2 born she named Hope and Grace. And Miracle, the one that fought back from death. Valor recovered slowly. The wounds healed. The weight came back. But more than that, the light came back to her eyes. The canine training was still there, still sharp. Eleanor worked with her, not to deploy, not to work, just to keep her mind active, keep her engaged. Word spread. What Eleanor had done, what she'd survived. The local paper ran a story, then the regional news, then national. Retired K9 handler saves stolen police dog, breaks up trafficking ring at 72. Eleanor hated the attention, but it brought something else. Calls, emails, people asking for help. Retired K9s with nowhere to go. Handlers looking for someone who understood. Organizations needing expertise. Helena PD reached out. Detective Williams on the line. We have a proposition. We need a consultant, someone to help train new canine handlers, someone to evaluate retired dogs, assess their needs, place them properly. It's part-time, contract basis. Interested. Eleanor looked around her living room, at Valor asleep by the fireplace, at Scout chewing a toy, at Miracle and Hope and Grace wrestling on the carpet, at the life that had somehow rebuilt itself from nothing. I'm interested. The work started small, one handler at a time, one retired K9, but it grew. Eleanor's property became a sanctuary, a place where dogs came to retire, to heal, to remember they were more than tools. They were alive, valued, loved. She converted Thomas's workshop into a training facility, built kennels in the back, proper ones, with heat and space and comfort, brought in other retired handlers, built a network. On a Tuesday morning, 8 months after that night in the blizzard, Eleanor stood in her training yard, Miracle at her side. 10 months old now, strong, smart, fearless. She'd been training him from the beginning, not because she had to, because he wanted it, because that drive was in his DNA, in his blood. Detective Williams visited, watched Eleanor put Miracle through his paces. The young dog performed perfectly, focused, controlled, every bit the working dog his mother had been. Williams crossed her arms. I have another proposition. Helena PD is looking for new K9s. We have 3 handlers ready, but no dogs. Breeding programs take years. Import programs are expensive. But if someone had a puppy from proven bloodlines, already started in training, she looked at Miracle. We'd be interested. Eleanor felt pride swell in her chest. Not for herself, for Miracle, for Valor, for the chain of survival that led from that frozen salvage yard to this moment. He's ready, or he will be. Give me 6 more months. Williams nodded. Done. And Miss Morrison, thank you for everything. You gave us back more than a case. You reminded us why we do this, why any of it matters. Eleanor watched Miracle play with his siblings, watched Valor supervise from the shade, Watch Scout, the puppy that started everything, the one that stood on two legs and begged and led an old woman into a blizzard to save its mother. I didn't do anything special. I just couldn't walk away. William smiled. That's what makes it special. That evening, Eleanor sat on her porch, the Montana sunset painting the sky orange and pink. The air warm, summer, the opposite of that winter night that changed everything. Valor lay at her feet, Scout on the other side, the three younger dogs playing in the yard. Eleanor pulled the photograph from her pocket, Duke, staring back at her with those intelligent eyes. That absolute loyalty. She carried it every day since that night. A reminder, a talisman, a promise kept. I did it, Duke. I saved one. Saved more than one. Found a reason to keep going. The wind rustled through the pines, carried the sound of dogs playing, of life continuing, of purpose rediscovered. Eleanor Morrison had spent 5 years convinced her best days were behind her, convinced she had nothing left to offer, nothing left to fight for. She'd been wrong. Sometimes rescue isn't about saving someone else. Sometimes it's about being saved yourself. About a puppy standing on two legs in the middle of a highway. About a chain that needed cutting. About a storm that tested everything and proved that old didn't mean done. That 72 wasn't an ending, just another beginning. Eleanor stood. Her knee barely bothered her anymore. Physical therapy helped. But more than that, having a reason to move helped. Having dogs to train, people to teach, lives to save. She called the dogs inside. All 5 of them. Fed them, settled them for the night. Valor in her bed by the fireplace. Scout close by. The 3 young ones in their crates. Content. Safe. Home. Eleanor turned off the lights. Stood in the dark living room. Listened to the sound of breathing. Of life. Of family. 5 years ago, she'd buried Thomas. Buried Duke. Buried the best parts of herself. Tonight, she was surrounded by the proof that burial isn't always permanent. That sometimes what's lost can be found. What's broken can heal. What's dead can come back to life. It just takes someone willing to stand in a blizzard, cut a chain, fight when every logical reason says quit, and refuse, absolutely refuse, to walk away. Eleanor smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow she'd train Miracle, work with the new handlers, maybe take another retired K9 into the sanctuary. Build, grow, continue. But tonight she'd rest. She'd earned it. They all had. Outside, the wind picked up, carried snow, just a dusting, a reminder that winter always came back. But so did spring, so did warmth, so did hope. And Eleanor Morrison, 72 years old, retired K9 handler, rescuer of the lost, savior of the forgotten. She'd be ready when it did.